All right, let's get into the Michigan stuff. All right, so Zach, oh boy. So Michigan got hit with their penalty for sign stealing and everything else. It's honestly, Michigan fans are taking a victory lap because they didn't get any wins vacated or anything like that, and Ohio State fans are a little upset. It's a very interesting situation. So I'll run through the penalties real fast, and then I'll turn it over to you, Zach. 4 years probation for the program, a $50,000 fine, 10% of the football budget, which could come out to over $30 million dollars when you also add in that they won't get their postseason revenue for this season and next season. I think the aspect of this that a lot of people are missing is that this is withholding money. This is not necessarily a fine that you are set to pay by like a certain due date or whatever, right? You get the electric bill for your house, you got to pay it by this due date. This is more the NCAA saying you will not make this money and you're going to have to try and operate without it. Jim Harbaugh gets a 10-year show cause penalty. Sharon Moore gets a 2-year show cause, a 3-game suspension, 2 games this year, the 2 games that they got to choose. I guess the NCAA can't even choose what games you're suspended for now. And then Sharon Moore doesn't get to go to Germany next year and play Western Michigan. I think that that honestly might be the worst part of this entire thing is Sharon Moore doesn't get to go to Germany. So
yeah.
Connor Stalions with an 8-year show cause. Oh, I should say Sharon Moore's 2-year show cause is not going to prevent him from coaching at all. There's 2 different kinds of show causes. There's show causes that essentially ban you from being in the NCAA. There's other show causes that it's just like an annoyance that you are employed because you have to continually show cause of why you hired that person. But to my knowledge, that doesn't even impact Michigan because Michigan already had him as their head coach. So it really doesn't do anything to them. 8-year show cause that does keep Connor Stalions pretty much out of college football altogether. Denard Robinson gets a 3-year show cause, and then there are some stuff of Jesse Minter and Steve Clinkscale, but those were for the recruiting violations with their penalties and stuff like that. So Zach, I will turn it over to you now. Did the NCAA get the punishment right?
JR, do you have a spare hammer? Because I can't find mine.
I have a toy hammer in this room somewhere where my kids play at. That seems efficient.
Yeah, so much for the hammer that certain outlets were projecting. So this is more significant than people think, and I think we'll get into that. Here's my first reaction. Why is it 8 years for Connor Stalions and not 80? Like, what are we doing? Get him out of here. Like, firing him into the sun. This is absurd. Okay. That's my most irrational. No, it's not irrational take. My most emotional take. I do think there is some weight with the fines and the probation because on one hand, it's essentially limiting Michigan from further wrongdoing. And I think it is marking Michigan with a bit of a scarlet letter. It is saying you did cheat. And it was against the integrity of the rule of the rules, which, a number of people have been saying this. I think Stuart Mandel, who we've criticized on this show, I thought made a really good point that right now, if you're a Michigan man, that stands for cheater. And
I mean, yes, but Stuart Mandel has said so much crap over the years that, like, I'm sorry, it doesn't even mean anything coming from him because he's going to take shots at anybody. And, like, this is the problem with a lot of journalists nowadays is that they will go so far out to say, something sensational about even the smallest things that even in the really big things, even if it is true, even in the really big things, it's like, okay, but you were also trying to make this sensational thing out of, something that was really a non-story just 3 months ago,
Sure.
So like that's the hard part is like, 10, 15 years ago, yeah, it would have mattered when a respected journalist came out and said something like that. But yep. I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but for me, Stuart Mandel's not a respected journalist, so he can say a Michigan man doesn't mean anything all he wants, but he says other crap that doesn't mean anything too.
Yeah. Well, that's fair. The point isn't Stuart Mandel, though. The point is that narrative. And I do think that narrative will stick a bit, particularly because, for a couple reasons. One, because they got these penalties and because you have these show causes. This was not a, well, I guess they didn't do anything, so we'll slap them on the wrist. It feels like that, and we'll get to that. But they did brand Michigan as being guilty. And I think that matters in the narrative. And what do we talk about all the time? That college football is about stories. It's about narratives. And so the narrative now, whether people like it or not, is that Michigan cheated. They were immoral. They were not integrous. And that is something they're going to have to work through. Now, do I think that the title is tainted? I know we'll talk about this more. Do I think the title's tainted? No. But do I think that Jim Harbaugh is a great coach? I think he is a good coach. But do I think that he is the man that he said he was? No. He said that a Michigan man doesn't lie. He's a liar. He's a liar.
Yeah, and I think that is probably the most egregious part of a lot of this stuff. If this was just the sign stealing, and I know Michigan fans say this all the time, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing with them when they say, like, oh, the sign stealing is such a nothing thing. And it's like, okay, that's why this is such a big deal about why Jim Harbaugh would lie and do all these things, and Connor Stalions would take it to the extent that it is. Because in reality, it's really not that big of a deal. It's really not that big of a deal that Connor Stalions stole signs. Did it give them a competitive advantage? Yes. Did it give them the competitive advantage to the point where they were solely able to win games off of that? No. Connor Stalions was stealing signs from Michigan State in that Central Michigan game for him, and Central Michigan didn't win that game. You want to know why? Because Michigan State had better players, and Michigan State was a better team, right? It can give you a competitive advantage, but the biggest part about all of this is that Connor Stalions and Jim Harbaugh, and probably others in that program, but we don't know that for sure. We just have the stuff here where it's like Connor Stalions, named him the KGB, and he's got, he's throwing stuff in ponds and all this stuff, which, by the way, that's just completely ridiculous. If we want to get into the comedy of the story, we could spend an hour on all of that stuff. But that's the most ridiculous part of a lot of this stuff is that it got escalated by Connor Stalions and everybody else. And I said it on Twitter yesterday. If I'm a Michigan fan, the biggest thing that makes me upset about this is that Connor Stalions, yes, he cheated the rest of the Big Ten in college football, but you know who he cheated worse than anybody else? Jim Harbaugh, the players, Chris Partridge, the coach. He cheated the program and the other coaches. So for people to be out there talking about how, oh, Connor Stalions he's this great guy, it's like, have you no shame? Do you not care about your program? Do you not care about J.J. McCarthy, Blake Corum, anything like this? Because the only reason dudes like Stuart Mandel are out there writing this article right now is because of somebody like Connor Stalions. So, yeah, you got your national championship, and nobody's going to take that away. It didn't get vacated. Like we said on here, even if it got vacated, it really wasn't going to be taken away anyway because you experienced it, you saw it. But at the end of the day, what did get taken away is the reputation of a lot of these players, the reputation of a lot of these coaches, because A, Connor Stalions was not forthright, was not honest, and B, Jim Harbaugh let it happen.
Yep. And I think with that, because we want to talk about what's going on in the world of football, but this is a fan podcast. And so I want to speak to Michigan fans. Some of you are, you're taking victory laps and you're making fun of other fans for crying. I just want to push back on you guys. You need to understand your program needs to eat this. And you guys, in a sense, need to eat this. Because if this shoe were on the other foot, if this were Ohio State, if this was Michigan State, if this was the SEC, which, by the way, the SEC was cheating all those years, and who was angry about it the most? Jim Harbaugh in Michigan. Yep. Now it's you. And so you guys are the big bad SEC now, who's cheating to get ahead and getting away with it. And you guys were crying about it 10 years ago, 5 years ago. And not just you guys, your coach was. And so if you're sitting here thinking, oh, these dumb Ohio State fans, or these dumb Michigan State fans, or these dumb Tennessee fans, how could they be so angry? Look at their tears. They're gloriously delicious. Stupid things like that. You need to understand, you guys are what you have become, what you hated. And that is egregious. And you guys need to look in the mirror, because that's what this is. You guys, like, your program is now what everybody made fun of the SEC for being. And so that is my plea to Michigan fans. And I know there's a lot of reasonable Michigan fans too, that are like Rich Eisen, who I do respect Rich Eisen.
Oh yeah, he came out and said it.
And he, as a Michigan fan and as a broadcaster, was like, I want Connor Stalions as far away from my program as possible. We didn't need him. And he's right about that. They didn't need him. That team was good enough to win a national championship without it. They proved it after he got booted from the program. So, like, my plea to Michigan fans is, think about this rationally. There's a reason why people are ticked off. And it's because your program cheated, even though they didn't have to. So, like, look in the mirror and take this L.
Yeah, there's nothing softer. There is nothing weaker. There is nothing less respectable than somebody who is a complete and utter hypocrite and those who support them, if we're just being completely honest.
Yeah.
You know, Michigan fans want to talk about how tough and how strong, and, you know, line of scrimmage, all this, that, and the other. Like Tice here, you know, you can call us clowns all you want, Tice, but man, you only got one name in this life, and you're going to use this name to go support somebody like Connor Stalions that cheated your coaches, cheated your players. Shameful. Yeah. You are a shameful. This is a shameful act. You're not shameful per person. I don't know you personally, but this is a shameful act for you to act like this, and I have zero respect for your stance on all this. Over and over and over again, you have been in the comments. You have zero respect. I don't even want to comment on here. Just don't even pay attention to him, Zach. He's completely shameful in this aspect of his supporting of Connor Stalions and Jim Harbaugh.
Well, and the thing is, we wouldn't disagree on that. On the point that Ohio State got pushed around. Like, that's not the argument. Like, they've lost 4 straight.
We've said it multiple times. Yes.
Yeah. Like, that's nobody is sitting here saying, like, Ohio State should get those wins back. At least we're not saying it. And so to Tyson and whoever else wants to say this is about the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry, it's not. It's exactly what you're saying. It's about reputation. It's about your name. And they tarnished it. And, like, I say this, I'm not speaking as an Ohio State fan as I say this. I'm speaking as someone who cares about truth, who cares about integrity, who cares about molding young men. Like, I mean, we're putting aside, I'm going a little off script here. I'm putting aside the Ohio State and football fandom. Like, we're both in ministry to see young men be molded to pursue the Lord, to pursue righteousness. And this is anything but.
And that's where we need to recognize where sports and real life are in different aspects, right? You know, of course it is an on the field thing, and I get that, but at the same time, you know, if you're going to support it, I get that, but you need to take a long look in the mirror. And, you know, if you're going to try to, you know, come out here and say that you're a respectable person and then come out and say this stuff and, you know, laugh at people and stuff like that, just says something about your character. But Dave brings it back to football. Let's do that. He says, my problem with it is that it was a non-blue blood. Would be the same punishment would it be the same punishment that happens to that school? Thank you for the $5, Dave. We appreciate that. No, this would not be the same punishment that would happen to a non-blue blood. If this was Minnesota, if this was Iowa, if this was, you know, name your school Rutgers or something like that, they would bash them primarily because they do not give the TV numbers that a team like Michigan does, or a team like Ohio State does. Now, has that always been the case? No. They slammed Ohio State like crazy back in, you know, what was it, 2010, 2011, whatever it was. which, I thought was ridiculous, but they went by the rules. And that's part of the problem here. They literally have rules that require certain things to be done, and they did not do those things because Michigan, number one, adds too much to the TV contract. I mean, this is just my hypothesis, but they add too much to the TV contract for the Big Ten. And then number two, they knew that Michigan would continue to come after them. So they tried to do something that Michigan would accept, which they're not accepting. They've appealed it now, and we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, which, by the way, the fact that they're appealing it, to me, is just, one, it shows that it is more severe than I think people are giving it credit for. But two, continues to show the delusion of what's going on there. Like, just, again, take the L. Come on, guys. Take the L. It's absurd. By the way, talking about non-blue blood programs getting the same punishment, Akron has a postseason bowl ban because of academics. So you can't give a postseason bowl ban because of a big cheating scandal, but you can give a postseason ban because of that poor academics. Again, the NCAA stinks.
Oh, they're just inconsistent,
Yeah.
Now, we can talk about this whole move to the fine and stuff like that, right? Because I listened to Tom Fornelli. Again, Dave, thank you for the $5. Really appreciate that. I listened to Tom Fornelli on the Cover 3 podcast talk about this fine and how, this is the new way of college football, and this is where they're going to hit them where it hurts. And if you haven't watched Tom Fornelli's coverage on this on Cover 3, go listen to it. I did think it was an interesting stance on the whole thing. I do think that the fine can impact certain programs, but it really depends on how Michigan wants to handle this, right? Does Michigan have Larry Ellison coming in and just replenishing all the money that they're not going to make from their revenue? Is this going to impact their ability to revenue share? It won't, because right now there are no rules when it comes to revenue sharing and everything else. To me, it seems like the NCAA is trying to operate in such a way where everybody is following the revenue sharing cap. But the problem is nobody's following it,
right?
Because nobody's going to get punished for it. The College Sports Commission can say we're going to punish teams for doing this, but until they actually punish teams for stuff like this, it's not going to matter, and nobody's going to get away from it. So I have hope that the CSC, the College Sports Commission, will actually start punishing teams for what they've done instead of just like fining them like they did here, like the NCAA did here to Michigan. But if we're being honest, these NFL teams, yes, they have billion-dollar owners and everything else, but so they get fined and that impacts them. But these schools have so many donors, have so many millionaires, everything else, that I don't think these fines are going to actually impact stuff. It might. I mean, who knows? Yeah. Michigan, their academic side might be so fed up with the football side, they say, get yourself out of it. And if it does, that will actually impact them. But if I know college football the way I think I do, which is that people value it to this crazy level, which I'm not saying is wrong, but they value it to crazy levels, then, this will be replenished and Michigan will be just fine moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I think going back, and I think we both projected this rightly, right? Like we saw how big the violations were. And yet I think we both were like very much in the camp of you can't punish. Like the only time you could have really punished them was in 2023. Right. And so for instance, vacating wins, we're both on record saying that's stupid because everybody remembers it. And a postseason ban, yes, it would have been, I think it would have been warranted. But again, I see where the NCAA is coming from in the sense we don't want to punish the current team, which I agree with because over half the team was not on the national championship team. The coaches that were complicit, aside from Sharon Moore, are not on the they're not coaching anymore. So in a sense, the NCAA kind of tied their hands behind their back, or tied one hand behind their backs when doing this case because of how slow they were, right? If this were 2023 before the playoff and they actually did due diligence to figure all this stuff out, it was like they could have banned them from postseason play, and that would have been the right punishment. But because they didn't do that, you really can't punish them other than with a fine and have it be just.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that people look at the fine too much and be like, "Oh, this is a nothing punishment," and I get that. But I do think that this punishment of Jim Harbaugh and Connor Stalions are substantial enough to not make coaches want to pursue something like this, right? Yes, Michigan did not get vacated wins and they didn't get a bowl ban, which I know, a lot of Michigan State and Ohio State fans and other fans too were hoping for. But at the end of the day, what's going to deter coaches from doing stuff like this and for coaches to know exactly what's going on in their program, because whether Jim Harbaugh knew or not, he's still being held accountable for what went on here, is that coaches are not all like Jim Harbaugh, where they just wanted to get out of college and go be in the NFL. They're late enough in their career that they want to finish out in the NFL. There are plenty of coaches in college that want to stick around in college. They want to win a national championship and they want to continue to coach in college. If that happened, if something like this happens and you get caught, you get a 10-year show cause, you're out of college football and you're essentially never coming back after that. So the hard part here is that I get people being upset about wanting all this punishment and stuff like that from Michigan and saying, oh, Michigan didn't get anything, so it's not going to deter anything. But when you look at what Jim Harbaugh got and Connor Stalions got, those were very substantial punishments, and I do think that's going to deter at least coaches from trying to do something like this in the future.
Yeah, I still don't think they did Connor Stalions right. I think he should be banned for life, but at least he got 8 years.
Yeah, he'll probably come back. He's going to pursue it enough. Yeah. He's going to coach in high school, and somebody will bring him back. It's going to happen. But at least for now, he's banned, and that will be enough of a deterrent for most people that they won't want to have to go back to coaching high school football for 8 years. So right now on FanDuel, Michigan, their odds to win the Big Ten, it's interesting because they're kind of in a little bit of a, I would say, like betweener stage right now. They are not high enough to be in the tier 1 with like Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon that are plus 190, plus 210, plus 420, but they're also not low enough to be down with the Nebraskas and Iowas and Indianas. That's like plus 3,000, plus 3,300, plus 4,000, right? Michigan and USC are both in this area. Michigan is plus 1,000, USC is plus 1,700. They're both in this kind of in-between area here. And I think this is going to be the most important part of this fine to see if it actually does impact things. Does Michigan still continue to elevate up and get into that first tier where they're starting getting odds like, Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon? Or are they going to fall down and start having odds similar to Nebraska, Iowa, Indiana? I think their name alone will not put them down that far, but I am interested to see how this changes with the future of the program. USC, I continue to think they're on the rise. If they don't hit it this season, I think they'll become a tier 1 program in the next coming years, but that's besides the point. That's different from this conversation.
Yeah, well, the key, how much does the fine impact recruiting? I think that's really the key. Like, does it affect their NIL stuff at all? And I don't think it will. So, I think you have to, you have questioned Sharon Moore's coaching ability, I think more than I have, but I think we both have questions. Is he the right guy long term? It made sense short term with how everything.
And it's still early in his career, right? I mean, this is his very first coaching job. This is what you go through when your very first coaching job is at a blue blood program. You are held to a standard that is higher than what a first-year coach should be held at. Because you have the responsibility of trying to compete for national championships and, make the playoffs. Yeah. And right now, Sharon Moore, last year, he finished the year well, but that still didn't look like, a playoff team for pretty much the entire season. So,
Yeah.
so we'll see what happens to Sharon Moore and everything else and how he navigates this. But I did want to bring that up with the future.